Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of YarninBlak. Today I've got a really great guest on and a real personal friend of mine, Caroline Hughes. Hi Caroline.
Yuma, hello.
Hi. I'll get Caroline to introduce herself very shortly, but I would like to acknowledge that I'm just coming in from the lands of the Wurundjeri people in Bowen Q, and I want to pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. So Caroline, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Janyimaba, which means thank you in Ngunnawal language.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where you're from?
So Caroline Hughes. Hughes is my married name to a wonderful non-Indigenous man, and my family are the Bells and Browns of the Ngunnawal people. I come from a family of 8 children, and my mother comes from a family of 14 children, and we've got heaps of cousins, and I broke the mould and had 2 children. So that's a little bit about me.
So where are you currently working at the moment?
So I currently work as the Executive Director of Collection Services at the Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies, AIATSIS. Really privileged to work here. Great place to work.
Yeah. What made you, because you were previously at the Canberra Institute of Technology, what
Yes.
made you go from there to this job?
Where I worked at CIT, I was the director of Yurauna, which is the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Educational Centre of Excellence. I built that up from 1.5 people to having 12 staff and 10 staff, 10 students to over 1,000 students. And I'd been there for 20 years and I loved it. And I never ever saw myself leaving. And then I seen the opportunity pop up of this role. And I actually had somebody internally at AIATSIS say to me, hey, you should apply for this. And then they said, no, there's no guarantee, just apply. And I thought, I'll just apply and see what happens. And I won it. I shocked myself and I won it. And I found it really hard to leave CIT education because I believe in the power of education. It's such a salient ingredient in empowering our people and bringing about change for the better for our people, by us, for us. And I'd seen so many successes and I actually sobbed when I was leaving. And I took 12 months leave without pay. But after 6 months of being in this role and going from a local ACT focus to a national focus, I loved it so much I resigned.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love what we do here and the work that we do for our people nationally and also internationally.
So for people that don't know, what exactly do you guys do?
So IATSIS is an institute that focuses on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander arts and objects. We have a vision that our knowledge and cultures are recognised, respected and celebrated and valued across Australia and also internationally. We have a growing collection of over 1 million items in our collection. That includes films, photographs, manuscripts, audio recordings and objects, printed resource material, other resources such as I said, materials. We ensure the highest ethical standards in relation to those materials directly benefit the communities that we work with. Everything is about telling the story of our people and engaging with our people across Australia and also internationally. We have really strong partnerships with both government and non-government sectors, the academic, corporate, but community is always foremost at the top of our minds.
Mm. You talked about education before, about being a key ingredient. When you were at school, how much Indigenous studies did you get?
None.
None?
None, zero. So I'm 59 years old and I grew up in a small country town, Tumut, and the extent of education about my people, I remember in second class one day being told that Aboriginal people were cave people and they had no society and they didn't have a language and we just grunted at each other. That was the extent. And then I remember going home And I was thinking, that's my people. That's who we are. And then I'd be at school, heard that. And then when I'd go home, I had all our beautiful language, our culture, and how we worked and treated each other, our special relationships that we had. And it made me feel bad about myself, like been hearing that at school, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Do you think it's changed a lot? Or do you think there's still a long way to go?
There's a long way to go still. There's a lot has happened, but we know that there has to be a lot more that happens as well. And we need to be able to give the tools and strategies to people in knowing how to work with us and to listen to us with Yinjamara and Winnagai. So in Winnagai and Ngunnawal languages, look, listen, learn. It's not about you speaking at us or being talking heads at us. And Yinjamara, which is a Wiradjuri word and a Ngunnawal word, you've heard Stan Grant, the reporter, the journalist talking about Yinjamara, and it's about a deep sense of listening to understand, not to respond. And I don't think many people practice that. So there's a lot more work that still needs to be done, AJ.
Yeah. Do you think there's any profession that's starting to get it right?
I think there are pockets that get it right, but it's based on the individuals, not on whole industries or professions.
Yeah. So after school, what did you go to study up? What was your first qualification?
My first qualifications, I actually became a timber stacker in a mill. That was my first job. I stacked timber. And after a couple of years of doing that, I was a bit of a party animal. And so I like to go at weekends and party. And I thought, sick of stacking timber where the rain was coming in winter, freezing cold, and the stinking hot in summer. And I'll go back to TAFE and study. And I studied. I joined I actually failed the entrance, but then they said to me, they got some funding to run a second course. So my literacy levels and my comprehension was just terrible. And they ran a second course and they got me in. And years later, I found out they only got me to come and do the second course because they needed one more bottom on a seat. And I was the student they expected to fail. And so to start the course, they just needed one more person, but they expected within a couple of 2-4 weeks I'd be gone. But I smashed that expectation, and I actually topped the both groups, and I loved it. And what I loved about it is that at TAFE, I was treated as an adult, whereas at a school I'd been bullied very badly, and teachers ignored me or were quite condescending towards me. Whereas at TAFE, I became a person. And I felt more real and seen, and I didn't know about their low expectations until years later when I went back and became a campus manager.
Yeah. So you actually studied at CIT yourself?
No, not at CIT, but at Riverina TAFE at Tumut campus. And I went there for 12 months, and they gave me the tools in understanding literacy, but also the tools in building my self-esteem and my confidence.
Yeah. And what have you studied since then?
Oh my God, what have I studied since then? I became I studied HR, and diploma of HR. I studied the basics of accounting. I went on to study. Did a teaching degree with UTS, adult education and community development, so it's a dual qualification. Have also studied the graduate certificate in the vet sector, as well as leadership qualifications, and I look at other opportunities always of formal and informal, always building up the foundation so that I am always looking at ways of improving myself and how I work with people around me.
You mentioned leadership. What makes a good leader?
somebody that sits and listens, that actually practices Yinjamara, respect, and I believe everybody in an organisation from the cleaner upwards deserves the same respect and to be listened to, just like a CEO. I don't believe that we should treat anybody different to how we treat the CEO. I believe in listening to staff. They get to see and have insight to things that we as leaders may not necessarily have access to. So I'm a democratic leader. I don't necessarily always have to take the advice of staff, but I listen and work out what is in the best interests of the organisation that I'm working for, but also my community, what is in the best interests. So I think a leader needs to listen, a good leader, and then take responsibility for the decisions that are made.
I like that. Do you have any role models yourself?
I have lots of role models. My first role model was a teacher that came into the TAFE the first day, Coral Bulger, who was my first experience of an Aboriginal teacher, and she was absolutely amazing, and I give her full credit to where I am today. I also have to reflect backwards again, in one of my role models was my mum, and what the experiences that she had as a child growing up, and how, despite all of that, she taught me about love and respect and treating others as how I would like to be treated, and not to hold on to hatred, which is really important. Otherwise, hatred is like drinking poison and expecting it to hurt the other person. And as she says, you attract more bees with honey than you do vinegar.
Yeah. It's a good saying though, isn't it?
It's a really good saying. And it's really hard to not hold on to a grudge or anger when people attack, and of course sometimes in community, and I think non-Indigenous people, this happens as well, the tall poppy syndrome. So when people are seeing people rise through the ranks, there tends to be a little bit of a jealousy, or how did they get there? And the only way you can get there is through hard work and self-determination.
A big buzzword that's around, it's been around for a while, is reconciliation. What does reconciliation mean to you?
It means it needs to be practiced. It's not something to be just written about and put on into reconciliation action plans, and then suddenly it's written and put on a shelf. So it's not something that can be put on a shelf. It's through everyday actions at work and at home and at play. And it's how once I come back to building relationships, because as we know, with our communities and families, everything is about relationships. So the 3 R's, relationship, 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 and not about the money people earn. It's about giving respect and receiving respect backwards.
Yeah. And cultural safety is another big buzzword that's around.
Yeah.
What makes you feel culturally safe when you go into organisations?
I think, first of all, the aesthetics do play a part. So I look and I see that I feel welcome. I remember walking into a hotel when my father passed away, and I was really sad. It was the start of Reconciliation Week, and I walked in after the funeral, and there on the desk were the flags and the acknowledgement to country that it was Reconciliation Week. And I was up in Newcastle, and I felt seen. I felt our culture seen, and that was important to me. It's such a sad time. So aesthetics do play a part, but it's just the top part of the cake. You have to go through the layers of the cake, and that includes the policies and procedures. They need to be also culturally safe and have a cultural lens over them, and reviewed from a cultural lens. I believe that we all bear responsibility for ensuring cultural safety, and it means for me as a Ngunnawal woman and elder on country that I don't feel disrespected on my country, but also wherever I go on country that I provide respect to the traditional custodians of where I am, and not to just pay lip service to it.
Working in Aboriginal health and working in education, you've probably heard of some of the stereotypes that are out there about Aboriginal people. What are some of the stereotypes, and what would you like to see changed?
The stereotypes that I've heard, you can run the gamut, like being lazy, alcohol, drug addicts, the assumption that, of somebody being an alcoholic when actually it may be their diabetes in play, stereotypes of being lazy, that our people don't work, and understanding what the layers are, what's happening. People just don't leave work and not come to work for no reason. What I'd like to see is further cultural competency training, so not just cultural safety or cultural awareness, because anyone can sit in a room and listen to somebody talk about cultural awareness, but it's cultural competency, changing our attitudes and on how to work with our people, but not just work with, but to build friendships and relationships with, because AJ, you wouldn't get yours and my colouring if our people were so adverse to other cultures. We have practiced that cultural safety, that respect, and embracing other people since the first invaders came to our lands. And, I just feel sometimes that people just want to hate for the sake of hating. And it's that needs to change in this country, this perception that Aboriginal people don't do, when what we are asking for is that we be heard and that we are given the opportunity to have to voice what we want to talk about and what is important to us, not to have it imposed on us.
Yeah. If I gave you zillions of dollars and a magic wand, how might you actually try to fix that?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. That's really big. What I would do is, I think, is invest in languages. Language and revitalisation is one of my passions, but healing trauma is also another passion of mine. And it's by bringing people together collectively and listening to each other. I'd probably change in that I'd have more of our leaders, both in government and corporate sector, more Aboriginal people in leadership positions. But we can't have just leaders and not have people working in the workforce. So I think I'd also invest in programs on TV that showcase our culture and help bring people along the journey with us.
Now, in your roles, you would have seen some huge success stories with students.
Yes.
What is one of your best success stories that you like sharing?
There's so many. There's just so many. Over 30 years in the education sector, and one of those stories is of a woman that had suffered great losses in her life, and through the power of education was able to come to Yurauna. Her children had been removed, and we had a early childhood centre established at Yurauna, and so the children were able to attend the early childhood centre while she studied, and was able to help build the relationship with the children. She went on to working in the alcohol and drug sector field, had her children returned to her, and they have been back together for over 10 years and operating beautifully as a family. And that has been a ripple effect for the rest of her family as well, that had also been involved with child protection.
That's a great story.
It's an amazing story, and it like I said, all the money in the world couldn't pay for that feeling that you get when you see that, the light in people's eyes, and the success that had for the children as well, because they were in an early learning centre where they were engaged in early childhood activities that improved how they could vocalise, how they could play together. And so mum and bubs were were together.
Yeah. A lot of times that students not fail but fall out of study. What's one of the biggest reasons that we're still not getting Aboriginal students to complete study? We can get them in there, but they're just not always getting to the end.
Yeah, I think for me, my experience, and I'd heard this from staff where I worked as well, is that, look, they've only come in to enrol to get AB study. And what I'd say to the teachers is that may be the case because Caroline only went into TAFE when she was 20 to get AB study. I didn't go there to learn. I wanted to get AB study so I could still go out and party of a weekend, and I didn't have to stack timber. I said so. But our role is to do what the teachers did for me then, was they helped plant a seed. And that seed grew because they invested in that seed. And so we have to make it that students want to come, and that they see their small successes that add up to big successes. And we've got to add value to them, not talk rubbish to them and tell them they're doing great if they're not, but also tell them and explain about improving and providing recognition where it's due. And there are people that will still fall through the crack, where there's alcohol, drug abuse. One of the things that really impacted, where you see people fall in love and their partner, the influence of the partner don't want them to come there because they're improving themselves. That's was one of the challenges. And then you'd see, later on after that relationship may have broken up, the person might come back, and that was both male and female. So love, ironically, was the thing that we had to fight against the most.
So getting back to your current job, what is your day-to-day life of Caroline?
Many meetings, working collaboratively and looking at opportunities for our mob across Australia. So those opportunities would be getting access to the collections, and so that's kind of what my life is. And so it's meetings both internally and externally with both government and corporate.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Retired. Retired. However, I won't be retired as in not doing anything, because I'm also, even though I work full time and this is a very high level role that I'm in, I'm also engaged in a lot of community work as well. So Caring for Country. So I chair the Ngunnawal Caring for Country Committee. I chair the revitalisation of the Ngunnawal language, the Ngunnawal Language Aboriginal Corporation. We involved in justice, education. So my weekends are caught up in doing things. My after hours, I am doing things with community, and I believe in investing in my community. So it's not about me being the one, but it's working with community and ensuring that the community have a voice, not just my voice. It's their voices that need to be at the table.
If people have never worked in a community setting before, what's it like being part of the community and working with the community for the community?
Well, there's challenges because it can be hard when there are dissenting voices and they have their own opinions. However, it's also really beautiful working with community and really uplifting for yourself mentally and emotionally as well. So we come together and we get to yarn and talk about ourselves as human beings and as members of our community, but then we can get into what the business is that we've come together as. And I really encourage more people to get involved in community business.
Yeah. You would have seen this in the area that you worked in before, but we get a lot of young people wanting to know more about their Aboriginality but don't know where to start. What advice would you give those people?
I would encourage them to talk to members of their families to understand who they are and where they come from. They could also reach out to, if they know that their family, they may be members of the stolen generation, is to talk to Link Up. They also may reach out to their land councils and Aboriginal health centres for advice and support as well. There's also the family history unit here at AIATSIS that helps people to have access to information about people's families. There's the National Library that has a lot of information on births, deaths and marriages. But talking to elders is really, really important. Elders know people's families. They know, if they may not know your specific family, but they may be able to point you in a direction. Talking to the elders in your family or who you believe you're connected to is really important.
Yeah. What makes a person an elder?
Good question. So it's not, people sometimes think that it's age, and it's not age. Elders are people that have proven themselves through time and have taken on responsibilities that have been given to them by their elders. They're people that listen. They can tell you, but they won't do for you. And it's really important they don't do for you. Otherwise, you don't grow. Elders do not curse you. They encourage you and provide positive advice in moving forward. And like I said, eldership isn't about age. Somebody could be an elder even though they may have been an alcoholic 20 years ago, but they've changed and they've sought the support they've had to have at that time, and have moved on and become people that have encouraged and supported other members of the community. Elders don't threaten, they encourage.
Mm. Got a couple of other little questions, but what does Aboriginality mean to a person?
Aboriginality, for me, it's beautiful. I'm really lucky to be have grown up knowing who I am and where I come from, coming from a strong mother and strong family. I grew up listening to mum and my grandmother and aunties yarning at the table, whether I was sitting under the kitchen table or outside listening. I was a very quiet child, and so listening has always been, and you probably hear me today talking about listening. And that's how I learn, by listening to others. And so my Aboriginality is like a comfort to me, and it's understanding not just my cultural but also my spiritual connections to my ancestors and to the country around me. Reaching out and loving and caring for those that are around me. My Aboriginality is one of strength. It's the 3 criteria. Identifying community, accepting me as, and having the bloodline. They're really important, but they're not the only things. It's being part of community. It's being part of my family. And when family or community reach out for support, it's not denying them. It's helping them to help themselves.
Mm.
So sitting down, having the cuppa, making time to have the cup of tea or coffee, having a yarn, they're all important parts of being Aboriginal.
Now, some people won't know this unless they kind of Google search you, but you were the 2020 finalist for ACT Australian of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
How was that experience for you?
It was amazing, and congratulations, AJ. You were a nomination for this year as well and shortlisted for Victoria. So big congratulations to you. And and I want to tell you again how proud I was to see that you had been nominated and shortlisted, because I've watched you grow over time, and it's been absolutely incredible. And what you do for community as well. It was an amazing experience, as you know. Like, it's just surreal that somebody thought highly enough that they nominated us. Yeah. And because you just do what you do every day, and you don't do it for the accolades, you don't do it for the money, because there's not a lot of money in it, and actually there's no money. There's no money, and so you do what you do because you love what you do, and you love people. And that experience was just so surreal, and it was just such an honour. And because to me, Australia is Nura, home to our people since time began, and that award represents my people, our people.
Yeah. And was it last year you were given an AM?
This year. So I became received an AM, and we got to go to Government House. I did consider saying no to it, actually, and then talking to my husband, because you actually have to keep it quiet. You can't tell people and that you have been nominated. And I did talk to Michael, and he said, Caroline, you could say no, but accepting it can help you do more for your people. And that's the reason why I said yes, and I accepted it. And once again, I was so honoured that somebody had thought, let's nominate Caroline for this, because once again, you don't do it for that. You don't do it to receive awards and accolades, do you?
No.
That's the furthest thing from your mind.
Yeah.
So an absolute honour. Yeah.
People. It's not about us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, not about us. And our last year was actually awarded an honorary doctorate as well, AJ, from the University of Canberra, and it was because of the work I do with community and the revitalisation of our language and my role in education for over 30 years. And once again, it was just I was just knocked for socks, like the people had nominated me to, and the big process to go through that. And I thought I was getting a certificate, and it wasn't until I think a couple of days before I realised I was told it's actually a doctorate. And I was like, what?
Whoa.
Yeah, like what? Wow. And then I did say to somebody, I don't know, I don't know if this is right, because I haven't written the 75,000 words that other people do to get a doctorate. And they said to me, they may have written 75,000 words, but you lived it and you did it. You made it happen. So you didn't just talk about it, you made it happen. And that made me feel better about it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't know. That one was kept under wraps.
And I did have a staff member, when they were booking me on travel, booked me under Dr. Caroline Hughes. And when I got home, I said to them, don't ever do that again. And they said, why? And they said, it helps you get really good seats on the plane. And I said, yeah, but if somebody had a heart attack or something, and they might come and get me, and I'd have to go, sorry, no, I'm an ear, nose and throat specialist. No, I can't do that. I could do some writing for you.
Look, I know I'm just watching the time. I know that you're really busy, so I do want to say thank you for joining us today. But what would you like people to walk away with from our yarn today?
I'd like people to walk away knowing that a little girl that was bullied severely at school had asked for God and ancestors to take her each night so she didn't have to face those bullies. I dread to think that I would have had access to social media like children do today and what they suffer. I want them to understand that there is another world out there, that it's not the end of the world, and that there is survival. And it's not just survival. You can own the world. You can own your life and where your life goes. It's not up to others. And it's the power, which is the salient ingredient, that can empower you to be whatever you want to be.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Well, guys, I want to say thank you to Dr. Caroline Hughes for joining us today. I've known you for about 15 years, and you're always really special to me, and I love you a lot.
I love you, my darling, very much. I'm really proud to be your friend.
So, guys, I'll see you at the next podcast. And again, thanks to Caroline for joining us. See you later. Bye.